Now the only challenge we found when cruising at these speeds, there is another problem in my book. Now in terms of ride, we expected a little more from the motorcycles. Hello and welcome to BikeWale, and this is the Royal Enfield Super Meteor 650. Now I know we've done plenty of videos on this motorcycle, but as it turns out, not a single one that involves riding it. Thankfully, we're going to change that today because we have this motorcycle for the whole day, and hopefully by the end of it, we'll tell you how it is to ride, is it comfortable, is it fun, and whether that 135 mm of ground clearance with that long wheelbase, is that a problem or not? But first, let's start with the design because clearly that is one of the standout aspects of the Super Meteor 650. One of the main reasons to buy the Super Meteor has to be its styling and stance. The motorcycle looks bigger than the Interceptor, and it looks nicer, more emotive in the flesh than it does in pictures or video. The bulk is courtesy the tank, the fat rear fender, the exaggerated fuel injection covers, and the fat and tall rear 16-inch wheel and tire combo. The desirability, meanwhile, comes from its typical cruiser design elements: the raked out front, the low scoop seat, the horizontal tailpipes, and in this top spec trim, the windscreen, the taller pullback handlebar, and the two-tone paint finish for the tank. All these work towards making the Super Meteor visually quite appealing. Now, one of the things that Royal Enfield said during the presentation of the Super Meteor is that they have spent a lot of time and effort in the smaller things to improve the premiumness of this motorcycle. And you can see that. And it starts from this badge on the tank. It looks rich, it's 3D. And then you've got the fuel filler. They've also blackened out and given a matte finish to the various cases, be it the head or the crankcase. And then there are other things that I really like, which is the chrome or satin chrome finish that they've given to the switch cubes as well as to the steering tee and the braces that hold the fork. So overall, it just comes together and makes the Super Meteor look premium. It is something that the owners will appreciate because every time they look at it, it will seem like it is money well spent. Even in terms of quality, now this is not going to be a 7 lakh rupee motorcycle, this will be a 3.5 lakh rupee motorcycle, thereabouts. And for that, quality really isn't a problem anywhere. I mean, everywhere you look at it, everything fits well, there's nothing dangling, and it just makes you feel good every time you look at it. So that's a job well done. Now in terms of features, it gets an all-LED headlamp, adjustable levers for both the clutch and the front brake, the tipper navigation unit, and dual-channel ABS. You also, of course, get tubeless tires as a result of alloy wheels. And you have upside-down front forks for some bragging rights. Now, to give the Super Meteor a proper cruiser stance, Royal Enfield has completely redone the chassis, and as a result, you've got a really low seat height. It's about 740 mm. So it's very easy to swing a leg over. And when you do, you realize that the footrest isn't neutrally positioned or rear set. Like in most motorcycles, it's up front. And I don't know whether it feels or looks like it's comfortable or uncomfortable, but we can tell you it is pretty comfortable. And not just when you're on longer rides, but even when you're riding in the city, because it's very easy to put your foot down. And even when you want to move it without power, we're in a very rough sort of a road, but still you can see that there's nothing that gets in the way. So it should be easy and convenient to move around while you're sitting on the bike or off it. Now this is the top spec Celestial version, and as a result of that you get this wider and higher and pulled back handlebar, and so overall seating is even more comfortable than, let's say, the entry-level models. And there is good leverage too, not just because of the width, but also when you turn it, there is good turns lock to lock. So whether you're riding it in the city or whether you're cruising long distance, I think this will prove to be a comfortable motorcycle to be on, especially when you look at the seat. It is not just well scooped out, but it's also pretty comfortable, nice and firm, not overtly soft. Now the big challenge comes when you want to put this motorcycle on the center stand, because I think that's poorly designed. Now you don't really need to put it on the center stand quite often, but when you do, you'd have to be careful, and maybe you'd want a friend to help you out, because otherwise it's quite a lot of effort. And this is one time when you can really feel the weight of the motorcycle. But otherwise, I think in terms of ergos, in terms of how it is to live with and move around, it should not be a problem. Now, one of the reasons we were really excited about the Super Meteor 650 when we first heard of it was because of the 650cc engine. Now, this is an engine that we've come to love on the Interceptor and the Continental GT. And given its character of low and mid-range grunt and torque and the spread, we felt that it would suit a cruiser, a laid-back cruiser, much better than it does the Interceptor or especially the Continental GT. And that's exactly what's happened. So the engine has been carried over without much change. Actually, there's no real change. There is some change in the intake, Royal Enfield says, and you can see that the exhaust system is new. But the overall power and torque figures continue to be the same, and they're made at the same RPM. So clearly, there is no real change there. Now, on the road, all that comes together really well. This is a motorcycle, a cruiser motorcycle, laid back, which means you're not really chasing. Quick acceleration, you're not really wanting to gain speed in a hurry, and that way you want a short shift. Maybe you don't want to shift at all, you just want to be super lazy and just open the throttle and get going. This motorcycle with this engine allows you to do that. So it allows you to be lazy, it allows you to relax, which is exactly the character of the cruiser, which fits really well with this engine. Now you can cruise at 100 kilometers per hour all day long without a bother. The engine doesn't feel stressed. There is no real awful noises coming from anywhere, and there are no real vibrations to talk about at that speed either. Now between 80 to 100, it feels super relaxed. It can also do 120 kilometers per hour for extended periods of time if the road and speed limit allows. And there too, it feels, again, relaxed, it's not stressed, and it feels very much like there's a fair amount of performance still left in spare. Now, the only challenge we found when cruising at these speeds, 100, 120, is the wind buffeting that we get from the windscreen. At 80, it's fine, but beyond that, you can really feel it hit your helmet. All of this portion remains good, hidden well. In the winters, I think in the morning when we were riding, it was nice and protective. We enjoyed that. But that buffeting issue can be sorted by getting an extender, cheap extender. You can buy it off any of the websites. So it's an easy fix in that sense. And now there is another problem in my book. It's not really a problem. It's not something that would change your decision about buying the motorcycle. But because I have lived with the Interceptor for so long, I have understood this engine and how it feels quite well. So if you're new to the 650, maybe you won't have a problem with what I'm just going to mention. But for me, I think I expected it to be similar to what is there on the Interceptor. So the engine, the vibrations and the sound, it's not as refined, or it doesn't seem as refined as the Interceptor. There are more vibrations across the spectrum, on the handlebar, on the foot pegs, around the seat area, which you don't really find on the Interceptor. Now, it could be because of the new frame, or the handlebar, the T, all of that has changed compared to the Interceptor and the Conti GT. So maybe it's that. But like I said, I can tell the difference because I ride an Interceptor every day. But for you who are new to the 650cc engine, it's not really a bother. It's just very mild vibrations. The other thing is the gear shift quality. Now the 6-speed gearbox on the Interceptor and the Continental GT, nice slick shifting boxes. Here too, the box hasn't changed, but because there is more leverage, I think there is that amount, that slickness has taken a backseat a bit. Again, it's not clunky in any way, but it's just that if you're used to those two bikes, then this just feels like it's not there in terms of refinement, in terms of that engine smoothness that we've come to expect. Now, unlike the engine, we did not know what to expect in the ride and handling department, especially given that the Super Meteor has a completely new chassis. It's got different suspension, a raked out front. It's significantly, or at least it's heavier than the Interceptor and the Continental GT. But the Super Meteor has surprised us. I mean, it's still not as quick and responsive and intuitive as, let's say the Interceptor or the Continental GT, but it's no slouch either. So it does take a little effort on the bars to get it to tip in, but once it tips in, it flows in beautifully. I mean, it's linear, it's predictable, so you can go over, when you go through long winding bends, it feels very relaxed, very planted. Even the tighter bends, you just have to work it a little more and it drops in beautifully. The only challenge that we faced here is, of course, it starts grounding its foot pegs a little too early. And maybe that's a good thing because we're not sure about the tires in terms of the rear profile still seems okay, but the profile up front is a little tall. So, but yeah, overall it's a motorcycle that handles surprisingly well for a cruiser. And then of course when you hit a straight road highway, then of course it's in its element, it's stable. Like we mentioned a little earlier, it feels relaxed at 100, 120. Even in terms of handling and stability, it feels like just right there. Braking again, there is a good amount of bite, there's good amount of feel. And here again, where we found that if you got really hard on the brakes, the front tends to, or the ABS kicks in a little early than you'd expect, and that's also down to how much feedback we're getting from the tires, maybe the grip. So that's it, but it's not scary. And overall, I think it's a motorcycle that surprises dynamically. Now, in terms of ride, we expected a little more from the motorcycle, especially given that it has more travel compared to the Interceptor. So we thought it'll be plusher, and that's something that would have gone with the overall, feel of a cruiser. But that's not the case. The rear, especially, is a little firm, and it keeps slapping your back, not intensely, but it never really settles. Now we are in Rajasthan. The roads are mostly, beautifully laid. You have some undulations, and then you've got some road work, some patchwork, but very minor. And even there, the rear just refused to settle. It was constantly moving, sometimes kicking, so it wasn't comfortable. Now, just imagine if you were in Bombay, the roads there are much worse. Even the well-paved roads are like all over the place, and we struggle with good riding motorcycles. So that's where we see a little bit of challenge. This setup reminds me of the Hunter. Hunter 2 has 135 mm of ground clearance and similar setup for the rear suspension, twin shocks. And probably the reason Royal Enfield has done that is so that there isn't a lot of movement. If it's soft and plush, then there will be more movement, and chances are that you will hit speed breakers or other things. With this sort of setup, maybe it won't touch anywhere, and it hasn't really touched anywhere in the whole day of riding that we've done with the Super Meteor. Agreed, the speed breakers have been, they've not been huge, but still we've taken some speed breakers, we've taken it a little off-road, but it's not really scraped anywhere. So maybe that's the logic and it works. Royal Enfield is looking at the accessories business with a serious intent, and rightfully so. It is, after all, positioned and seen as a lifestyle brand. Expectedly, the Super Meteor comes with a wide variety to choose from. RE itself has clubbed these accessories into two themes to make it easier for Super Meteor 650 buyers to pick. There's the Solo and the Grand Tourer themes. Both themes include engine and some guards, more comfort-oriented foot pegs, more touring-friendly seats, and nicer mirrors. The difference mainly is down to things like windscreen, luggage options, and the alloy wheel design. Also, knowing Royal Enfield's pricing strategy for accessories based on the past, we don't expect them to be prohibitively expensive. Now, I wouldn't pick it if my touring involves bad roads or a whole set of twisties and ghats. But let's say I want to travel from Bombay to Delhi, I want to do West Coast to East Coast via Solapur and Hyderabad, and that's where this would fit in really well because it's not going to tire you out, it's going to be calm, and it's great in a straight line. The braking works, so there is definitely more to like than not like on this motorcycle. Now, we don't expect it to be priced very, very high. It will be the most expensive Royal Enfield, but not by much. So overall, I think Royal Enfield's done well. And if you are, thinking about a 650 and you like the cruiser looks and what it offers, great, go for this. If you're still not sure, then just stick around for a little longer, because there is something that we will tell you about this and the Interceptor within a few seconds. The Super Meteor 650 really has no rivals. Now, when it is launched, we expect it to come at about 3.5 thereabouts, and the closest cruiser that you can look for, which is a twin around the similar capacity, is going to be significantly more expensive, coming from Japanese. So if it is really looking, if you're looking for an option, then the only option really is within the family, which is the Interceptor 650. Now, if you want to make a more informed decision whether you should go for the Super Meteor or the Interceptor, we thought we'll just list out the differences, and then you can decide for yourself which of the two you should settle for or go for. Now, of course, design is completely new, but also compared to the Interceptor, the chassis on the Super Meteor is totally new. It also gets more updated suspension. It's got big show upside down forks at the front, and it's got more travel up front, even at the back. The Interceptor's got regular telescopic forks, 41 mm, this is 43 mm. And then, of course, when you look at it in terms of wheels, this has alloy wheels, that has spoke wheels. So because of alloy wheels, this also runs tubeless tires. So in terms of tech, I think the Super Meteor is a step above the Interceptor, but that's when you look at it as products. But when you want to ride it, then the Interceptor probably makes more sense if you're looking for a motorcycle mainly for the city and maybe a run up your favorite twisties, because this, with its wheelbase and the overall sitting, won't be as convenient or as involved as the Interceptor. The Super Meteor makes more sense if you are going to be touring more often, especially on well-paved roads, because the design, the comfort, the seating, all of that works towards that. Especially when you look at this flat exhaust. So this allows you, even if you're touring alone, to throw in the saddlebags, which on the Interceptor with its upswept exhaust is always a problem. But the big thing is, if you want to go touring with a pillion, the Super Meteor is the better motorcycle. It's got this really big seat, especially in this top spec version, and because of the flat exhaust, the seating ergos for the pillion are much better. I'll just show you. Just go around. Not as easy, baby. Not in these pants. So when you sit, you will find that there is, of course, more space. The backrest is usable too. And it is essentially the seat and the foot peg placement, which is much better on this motorcycle compared to the Interceptor. In the Interceptor, chances are the pillion sits with the knee more towards the ear. So these are the main differences between the Interceptor and the Super Meteor. So choose wisely.
And finally, in terms of pricing, the Super Meteor is priced at Rs 3.49 lakhs ex-showroom for the entry-level Astral model. The top spec Celestial model you see here, however, costs Rs 30,000 more at Rs 3.8 lakhs, again ex-showroom. The Interceptor, on the other hand, costs Rs 3 lakhs ex-showroom for the custom trim, which makes it 80,000 cheaper than the Super Meteor 650. However, this price difference gets you alloy wheels, upside-down front forks, a bigger rear disc brake, more up-to-date instrumentation, LED lights and adjustable levers on the Super Meteor. Not to mention a nicer seat and a windscreen. All of this, of course, is missing on the INT 650. So in a sense, the premium pricing of the Super Meteor does make sense. Now, we won't call the pricing brilliant, but it does justify the premium.